Hello everyone, welcome back to the tutorial series. In this tutorial we are going to code our setup script. So the setup script is going to connect us to the database and create the database together with the necessary tables that we will need in our registration system. But before that, we're going to set up our file structure. So currently I am on the command line and I'm going to the server files where we have the server file stored, that is in XAMPP. So let me navigate to XAMPP folder, htdocs. So this is where we're going to create our project folder. So I'm going to create our project folder, mkdir, then the project name, I'm going to call it registration system. Registration system. So right now we have the registration system folder. So let me just go to our code editor, that is Visual Studio Code. You can use any of the code editor, but for this tutorial I chose to use Visual Studio Code. So I'm going to open or add a folder to the workspace. So I will navigate through to the folder. So that is on XAMPP htdocs. So this is the project folder that I've just created, registration system. So I'm going to create our first file and I'll name it setup.php. Before we write anything, I'm going to start the server, that is XAMPP. So I'll start Apache and MySQL. Then I'll open my browser. In my browser I'll type localhost/registration system. This is the project folder. So as you can see, we have the setup file right here. So if I click on setup.php, then this is going to run the PHP script. So since it's empty, nothing is going to be executed. So we want to write our first line of code. So I'll go back to our setup.php. So of course this is how we initiate PHP. So of course this is how we start the PHP script. So let me say create connection. Then right here we'll have the variable connect equal to new MySQL. Then we will include the server name. So of course we'll add values to these variables later on. So let's just proceed. Username, then password. So this represents the name of the server, then the username and the password. So these are the credentials that we need to have a connection to the local server. So let's give these variables some values. Server name. So the server name is localhost. Then username. Let's have a semicolon to close that. Then username. By default it's root, and of course by default we don't have a password. If you didn't change this while installing XAMPP or WAMP, then by default this won't have a password unless you had set one. So we're going to have it as blank. Then we can also close this. with a semicolon. So these are the values that will be passed through here to have the database connection. So to check if there is a successful connection, I'm going to say, let me just write a comment here, check connection. So if we have a connection error, then we should get a message that connection failed. So we should get an error message, connection failed. Then we can include the error. So this will terminate the execution of the script. So we can include an else. We can echo successful connection. Successful connection. So let's save this and run our script. We can close the connection right here. Then we can close PHP. We are having an error here. I think we left a semicolon there. Okay, so let's save that. So let's go and run the script and see what is the output. So we'll refresh this. Let's run. So you can see we have successful connection, meaning we have successfully connected our system to the local host server. So right now we are going to write a code that is going to automate the creation of the database together with creation of the tables that we will need. Let's go back to the script and add the necessary codes. So we are going to include the codes to create a database down this comment. So create database. So let's include an SQL. Let's include an SQL statement that is going to create the database. Create database. If not exist. If the database exists, then there'll be no need of creating the database. But for this case, user database. So let's close this. So we'll write a control structure so that when we run the script, we are able to know if there is an error while creating the database. So if connection query SQL is equal to true, we should echo a success message. Database created successfully. Then if this is not the case, we can include an else statement that echoes a connection error. So echo, we can include the error message, creating database. Then we can include connection error, the error message that we will receive. Okay, let's save this. Let's now go and run our script and see. So I'll refresh this. Then let's run the script. We have an error message that we are getting. So we have a successful connection, but we have an issue on line 19. Let's check line 19. This was supposed to be $SQL. This should be the value of the variable here, so we left the $sign. So let's save this. Let's run this again. So you can see right now we have successful connection, and also we have a message, database created successfully. If we go to PHP MyAdmin, let's just go to localhost. Then if we go to PHP MyAdmin, we will find the user database created right here, and if we click on it, notice that it has no tables. So right now we've automated the script to create the database, and we are also going to automate the script so that it can auto create the tables for us, so we don't have to come to PHP MyAdmin to create them from here, because we can as well create the tables from PHP MyAdmin, but we want to have this done on the setup file. So let's go back to the setup file. So we are going to include a code that will create the table for us, but before that we have to select the database that we want to use. Select the database. So connection, remember this one is connecting us to the server. Connection, select DB. This stands for select database. Then we have to include the database name right here, user database. So this is going to select the database that we want to use. Then right now we can create the tables. So we'll start by creating user table. So in the user table, this is where we'll have the details of user stored. So we'll include by writing an SQL statement. So let's save it under variable SQL. So let's write the create table statement. Create table if not exists users. So this is the table name. We can have it in small letters. Then inside the bracket we can include columns. So we can have column ID as integer with 11 numbers. We can set it to not null, but first let's close this and proceed here. Okay, let's just proceed. We will make necessary adjustment where possible. So you can set this to not null. Then we can set it to auto increment. So if you have an issue with MySQL, I have a MySQL course. You can check it out in our website. Username, so this is another column. We can set it to virtual with a maximum of 50 characters. Then we can set this to not null. Let's have another column for password. You can also set this to virtual. We can give it a maximum of 255 characters and also set it to not null. Then we can have another column for email, set it to varchar with the character maximum 100. We can also set this to not null. Then we can set the primary key down here. So primary key is the ID column. I think we have an issue here. This should be create. That's why it's not even highlighted as a SQL keyword. So right now we have the SQL keywords highlighted. Okay, we can close this. So this should create the user table for us. So we can add an if statement so that we can know if the table is created successfully. So let's say connection. Let's check the query. SQL. If this is equal to true, then we should execute echo table users created successfully. Else we can include here an else statement. Else we can echo an error message. Error creating table users. Then we can include the database error. So we can save this. Let's run and see. So if we run this, you can see we have a server connection successful, database created successfully, and also a message table users created successfully. If we go to PHP MyAdmin and refresh, we will see that we have one table created, that is the users table, and it has the column ID, username, password, and email. So let's now also automate the creation of products table. So let's go back to our file. So what I'm going to do, just to save on time, I'm going to copy paste this. Copy. Then I'm going to paste it here. So I'm going to say products. This one I'm going to say create products table. I'll give the name of the table as products. Then I leave the ID as it is. Then this one can be the name. I can set the varchar to 100 character maximum. Then I can change the password to description. Then I can set this to text. Since it's going to take in more characters, I'll set that to text. Then I can change the email to price, and this can be a decimal since we are expecting a decimal number. Since we can expect to 2 decimal places, not null. Then the primary key, of course, it's the ID. If the query is true, then we should have table products created successfully. Else, if there is an error, then it should return error creating table products. Let's run this. Let's save this and run this. So let's go back to our project folder. Let's click on this. So you can see we have table users created successfully, and we also have table products created successfully. So that was a successful run. So let's come back to PHP MyAdmin. Let's refresh. So notice that we have the products table created automatically from the script with the ID, name, description, and price columns. So that's how our setup file looks like. So that's all for this tutorial session. See you into our next tutorial session, where we'll start working on the registration form together with its functionality.